Our county board proceedings will now come to order. Is everybody punched in? We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Locke with the invocation.
We come to you tonight asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our communities. Happy holidays to all. Amen.
Amen. I'd like you to stay standing, and we'll have a moment of silence for former Supervisor Neubauer. Thank you. Supervisor Rubel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the approval of this evening's agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? Now is your time to talk. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? That portion of the meeting will be closed. Communications from the clerk.
You have a number of resolutions from other counties. The first, and they are listed on your agenda, but they're referring to the appropriate committees. The one from Douglas County repeals certain provisions enacted by the state of Wisconsin 2015-2017 budget concerning shoreland zoning standards is referred to the Legislative Committee and Planning and Zoning Committee. And there's also St. Croix has the same resolution. So that also will be referred to Planning and Zoning and Legislative. Racine County's resolution by the individual supervisors supporting Paul Ryan in his new position as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, refer that to the Legislative Committee. St. Croix also had another resolution to repeal paragraph 23 of Motion 520 to the State of Wisconsin 2015-2017 budget, also relative to shoreland zoning, referred to Planning and Zoning and Legislative. St. Croix also had the county resolution opposing 2015 Senate Bill 294, dismantling the Government Accountability Board, referred to the Legislative Committee. And then Wood County's resolution to support the implementation of the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act to reform SSI asset limits in Wisconsin, referred to the Legislative Committee as well. And that's all.
Okay. Thank you. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Park Committee decided we're going to change our meeting to become the last Monday of the month at 9 o'clock a.m. The fourth Monday of the month, because there are some Mondays that go 5. Thanks, Larry. And the other thing is I want to take this time. We're very proud at Human Service. One of our own, Mary Kruger, manager of Winnebago County, she's been appointed as long-term support policy advisor committee through the WICSHA Committee of Human Service. So this is statewide, and she's been appointed to their committee. So that's a good thing for Winnebago County, that we have some very good employees here. So thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, I'd like to read a letter from a constituent. It's rather short, but dear supervisors, I am a Winnebago County resident, having lived here since 1980. I have never had a need or occasion to spend time at Parkview Health Center until recently. After a recent hip replacement, I spent 2 weeks there. From the bottom up, everything there, from housekeeping, activities, food service, nursing, and therapy, deserves merit. Physically, the building and every room is spotless and inviting. Everyone who works there is kind and helpful, many times anticipating my needs. The meals are varied and delicious, with a visit from staff who documented my likes and dislikes. The PT and OT staff are outstanding. They knew exactly what I had been doing wrong for 6 years and helped me set goals to correct them. For the first time in 6 years, I have walked and sit correctly. The nursing staff, from aides to the director of nursing, were excellent in short order, knowing my name and how to care for me. The senior staff extended quiet confidence. The younger staff restored my faith in the dedication of young people. County supervisors, you should consider Parkview Health Center as, quote, a jewel in the crown, unquote. Sincerely, Mrs. Bill Rowe.
That was very nice, thank you. Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been some questions about an article in the paper recently that talked about getting maybe a associate degree or maybe even a business or bachelor's degree, through the extension. And that's about all I knew about that. So since I was asked to check into it, I checked into it with Chris and Catherine Niesweiler to find out what we knew about it. And so basically, it's a flexible degree that was set up back in June by Governor Walker and Ray Cross. And they had indicated at that time it would be starting this fall, and I'm not sure if it actually has or not. But what it does, it goes back and takes people's experience and says that we'll break the degree back into segments, and the person can take a test to determine whether they understand that particular segment. And if so, they don't have to really take any courses, they can just use their experience to do that. And basically, they're not required to take any courses any time during this as long as they continue to take care of the segments. And it depends on what the particular degree you're looking for as to how many segments you might have to take. They did indicate that this is not to interfere with any existing programs, and the person that's taking these segments, basically has to get accepted by UW. We have not been able to find anything that deals that with extension, so we don't know right now whether that was just a misquote in the paper or we just don't have the information yet at the extension level. So that's about all I know about it. So whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recently this week, I had the opportunity on the radio to catch part of a piece about a problem that I have heard and seen uptick and that a lot of us have, the heroin addiction and the opioids. It was such a very good piece that I strongly recommend it for listening to with your kids, grandkids, good link to share with friends, fellow parents, and it's probably a good thing for anybody in a county board with health services or a municipality to listen to. It's about a 49-minute audio or the text version on the same link. I've forwarded a message to the clerk just now to share with you, but it's called The Epidemic of Our Time, Heroin and Opiate Addiction in Wisconsin. It's written by a radio news director in Milwaukee named Dan O'Donnell, and I listened to it in the last 2 days. I highly recommend with some of the decisions that come up in the health things that will come up and some of the upticks that we may have to deal with. I strongly recommend listening to it. On a happier note, earlier this afternoon I attended the Greater Fox Cities Habitat for Humanity dedicated their 200th home, and the Sierra family in the town of Menasha has a new home. I bring it up because I would like the supervisors to look for probably the northern part of the county because Oshkosh has a habitat, but Fox Cities will forward out a celebration of partnership that will come in March. It's a dinner that you're invited to in the Paper Valley Hotel, and it's a great event to see what Habitat does. I have a relative that works for them. I had no idea how deep and wonderful it is. I knew it was good before, but I urge supervisors to look for those invites next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just of a notification that the Legislative Committee will meet on Monday, January 25th. We should have a really good agenda. Monday, January 25th.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few weeks ago, Rethink had their end of the year celebration, gave a number of community awards, and got some awards from some community groups. Mainly the money they raised from the addiction run that they have in September. But one of the awards that were handed out is our own Supervisor Ken Olson won, I believe, was called the Inspiration Award that night.
Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just thinking out loud here, Supervisor Finch, I think you indicated that Parks was switching to the last Monday of the month?
The fourth Monday of the month.
The fourth Monday? And does that interfere with legislative?
Not at all, same day though. Legislative at 8:30 a.m., that's when it is.
Oh, and you're in the afternoon?
9 o'clock.
That's what I thought. Is there going to be a confliction there? Thank you.
Approval of county board proceedings from November 17th, 2015. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any further additions or corrections? Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 200, under Winnefox Library System Board of Trustees, Jeff Jensen's name is misspelled. Should be E-N-S-E-N. It's spelled correctly in the line below it, but just so that's corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other additions or corrections? With those corrections, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. County Executives Report.
I promised someone that I would mention that Fit Oshkosh, Inc. and Wisconsin Humanities Council are doing a community read of the book Between the World and Me by Tanishi Coates. I've ordered my copy tonight and read a little excerpt, and it does sound interesting. I would encourage anyone to reserve a copy at the library or to order a copy because many people in the community will probably be reading that. With regard to resolutions tonight, I certainly support Resolution 242-122015 with regarding the renaming of the landfill conservation park. And I also want to point out there's a resolution before the board with regard to the travel policy. That's both for employees and board members. And I want you to read it carefully because the new amounts in the policy are going to be maximum reimbursements. And so that meals will require receipts going forward to be reimbursed, and they can be reimbursed up to these new maximums, which are inclusive of the tip. And that's my report on the agenda for tonight. I do have a number of appointments, however. With the support of the board, I would like to appoint Ronald Lewis to the Grievance Review Board.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I have a number of appointments and reappointments to the Local Emergency Planning Commission for board approval. Tracy Warren, Mike Sippen, Emily Mikowski, Doug Gearin, and Larry Smith.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I have reappointments to the Veteran Service Commission. Bob Warnke, Jim Romnick, and Tom Snyder.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And I have two appointments for your approval to the Winnefox Library System Board of Trustees, Kim Molitor and Mary Bible.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hardy and Supervisor Kreischer had asked to be excused from this evening's meeting. And then there's a note on your desk again to remember that the meeting's been changed from the 19th to the 26th for January. So we mentioned it at the last meeting also, but just another update. Zoning reports and ordinances. Oh, just a minute. Supervisor Eisen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, could you give us a report of the Christmas party last night? I think the people who were absent would kind of wish they were there.
We had a Christmas party last night, which was very well attended, and the food was great, and those that weren't there missed something. So, and those that came, thank you for coming. Zoning reports and ordinances. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of report number 1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept report number 1. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 120115. Rezoning of R1 rural residential for tax parcel number 0160521, parent P. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of mandatory ordinance number 1.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Report number 2, Linda and Ronald Wackels of Town of Nakai. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of report number 2.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance 120215, rezoning A2 general agriculture for tax parcel number 0120250-01. Supervisor Egan.
I move for the approval of a mandatory ordinance number 2.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Zoning report or resolutions and ordinances. Resolution number 237, 12/2015. Authorized execution of lease agreement between Winnebago County and the Winnebago County Fair Association. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 237-122015.
Been
If
moved.
there's any questions, Rob's in the back.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should like to inquire whether there are any major changes from the leases that I've personally seen for the last decade. I know that the previous leases provided, or does this involve any contributions to the, take into consideration any budgeting for the Fair Association?
No, there are no major changes.
Okay, yeah. Could you give us an overview of what's involved there with the lease?
Well, the lease constitutes no exchange of rental revenue. Basically, the fair covers its costs, so there's no expense. Covered by the Parks Department, we bill out utilities for the cleanup of the horse leavings. And rarely, there's some times when we have to do cleanup, and that's billed out as well. So there is no real overhead for the Parks Department per se for the presence of the Fair Association on the grounds. However, there is no rental applied for this. And again, there were no major changes, some updates on wording, that was about it.
Yeah, I should like to, for the benefit of new members of the board, restate that in the past, the Fair Association had owned the fairgrounds that were located at Murdoch and Jackson Street, which they ceded, I think, to the county. So it's wholly appropriate to provide a lease under the most favorable conditions, because the value of that property, as it has developed, has, just the taxes that the county collects on it is probably covering all the expenses that may involve with the relationship with the fair. And I endorse approving it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 238, 12/2015. Approve request of updating of 1950 easement relating to an ANR pipeline company, gas pipeline, and its crossing of the Oshkosh recreational trails. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 238-122015.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 239, 12/2015. Authorize the execution of a land lease between Winnebago County and the Army Corps of Engineers for the purpose of operating a water level gauging station at the Lake Butamore boat landing. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 239-122015.
Been moved and seconded. Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed when I was reading the resolution that this is a 15-year agreement.
That is correct.
And it's from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yes.
So that's a government agency. Is this how they usually put their leases together, by 15-year increments?
Yes, the last one that we had with them at Boom Bay was 15. I think it might have even been longer, but I think the standard is now 15.
Okay, I just bring that up because there was questions in the last meeting about why the airport hangar has a 15-year lease. Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Amend the table of organization for Winnebago County Human Services Department. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 240, 12/2015.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Authorize the transfer of $15,600 from the UW Extension Department's small equipment account in its 2016 budget to its capital outlay account of the department's 2016 budget for the purpose of purchasing and installing a hearing loop in the Coughlin Building large conference room. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move for resolution number 241, 12/2015.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, what is not being purchased from the UW Extension Department's small equipment account in lieu of this transfer?
Chris, can you explain?
When it was included in the 2016 budget, it was put in the wrong category. It was put, so the money was put in small equipment for next year instead of itemized as a capital. So it's not replacing anything, just a misclassification.
Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Authorize the naming of the new Snell Road landfill Conservation Park. I forgot now, who's the vice chair? Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I proudly move to approve resolution number 242-122015, authorize the naming of the new Snell Road Landfill Conservation Park. Whereas Ken Roble has served on the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors for over 35 years. Whereas Ken Roble has served as a member of the Winnebago County Solid Waste Management Board for over 35 years. Whereas Ken Roble is a lifelong environmentalist and a citizen of Winnebago County. Whereas Ken Roble's knowledge and wisdom as a Winnebago County Board member and as a member of the Winnebago County Solid Waste Management Board have been extremely beneficial to the development and growth of Winnebago County over the past 35 years. Whereas it is altogether fitting and appropriate that the conservation park that is to be developed at the Snell Road landfill site be named in Ken Roble's honor. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors that it hereby recommends naming the new conservation park to be developed at the site of the Snell Road landfill be named Ken Roble Conservation Park. Respectfully submitted by the Solid Waste Management Board with a committee vote 6-0.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Have respect for me, and I'll do the best I can to see that project is done.
Good job, Ken. Amend Section 3.05 of the General Code of Winnebago County, attendance at meetings or schools. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Mr. Chairman, I move for ordinance number 243, 12/2015.
It's been moved and seconded. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make reference to the updated item number 9. If the submitting supervisor could explain to us what that paragraph means. If he could read at least the last sentence is confusing to my judgment.
Okay, you got the number? What do you want? Which one was it?
What does that mean, that the reimbursement would be at like 1/1000th, 10,000th of a cent per mile?
Chuck?
Years ago, one of the county board supervisors wanted to be reimbursed mileage for walking to a meeting. At that time, the board decided to eliminate those types of issues to pass reimbursement rate of that, basically avoid that.
I couldn't hear the first part, what you said. Start over again.
Okay, years ago, one of the supervisors submitted a mileage request to be reimbursed for walking to a meeting. And of course, the mileage reimbursement is meant to reimburse you for your vehicle cost. So the board at that time amended the ordinance so that if you want to walk to a meeting, you can get .0001 cents, which ultimately, prevents people from requesting those.
Supervisor Singstock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to amend the motion. I'm referring to section number 7, line number 6. After the word review, I would request that we insert and approve.
Second.
What page, what?
The very last paragraph. On I'm changing, I'm asking the line number 3, where it says responsible to review. I'm requesting that we insert and approve expense.
Okay, you read it back what you wanted to do.
So Supervisor Singstock, just so I had that correctly, it's on the last page under 7, enforcement?
That's correct.
Okay, and that would be, so it'd be changing the sentence, the chairman of the Personnel and Finance Committee shall be responsible to review and approve expense reimbursement requests.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now we'll go back to the original resolution. Supervisor Widener?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question relating to the fact if you go to a conference and you're saying we're still within that same limits. There are times we've gone to conferences, and I personally have no problem with getting the receipts, so that's not my issue. The issue is sometimes there are places you cannot live within the amounts you've got on this thing here. As an example, when I was in a meeting in Washington and recognized I cannot go out from the hotel and go down to other places to get me, I'm trying to look for the right word, the smorgasbord or the buffet that they had for breakfast at the Hilton, which is where we were staying, was $21. Okay, I did get a receipt for that. My question is, if we get into situations like that, is there any allowance for the fact that you have to, that you cannot live within that thing and still get a meal within a hotel?
I think that I have the authority to make an exception once in a while, not much, but if on a rare occasion, if that happens. That's the best I can answer it. Supervisor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You just answered the question that I was going to answer. Thank you.
Supervisor Olson.
Getting to Mr. Widener's comments, it would seem to me that the reimbursable expenses are all at the same rate no matter where you are. Is that correct? Because he makes a great point. There are places we go where the hotel and the food and everything else is quite expensive. And it's not because we specifically chose to stay there. That's where the conference is. Now, we can go stay at a cheaper place, but then we're going to have to take taxi cab rides or rent a car or whatever. When we travel on the county's expense, we do whatever we can to make sure that our expenditures are well within line and within reason. But I think there should be exceptions made for when we do go to a high-cost city. And many of the cities that hold these types of conventions are very high cost. The breakfast in my hotel was $17. And I balked. I'm like, how can I spend $17 on breakfast? Well, where else are you going to go, you know? So sometimes we're just kind of stuck going where everything is. And I know that company I used to work for followed the Runzheimer travel rules, and what that was is they would make exceptions depending on what city you went to. They would have upper, middle, and lower ranges of what you were allowed to spend per diem, and that always seemed to work real well, because if I was going to New York, let's say, I knew how much I could spend and how much, or whether I was over or not. And if we went by that sort of formula, I think when we go to high-cost places like Washington, that would cover it. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. One, you got the noes? 2 noes. Pardon? Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until Tuesday, January 5th, for a special order of business meeting at 6 p.m.
Then second, we are adjourned. Have a happy New Year and Merry Christmas, and we'll see you.